And welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and P-Bush. How you fellas doing?
Doing all right, man. That was a tough Bears game on Sunday. Zoo texted me with 3 minutes left asking if the Bears are going to blow it, and I told him probably. And that sure came to fruition real quick. Fields, man, they still got a lot of decisions to make this offseason, man. But
Yeah.
I was just telling the guys before, and I got a decision to make next year when it comes to my dynasty between franchise tag and Tank Dell and Jalen Warren, man. So a lot of young up-and-comers. Injuries have kind of helped. Some poor play by running backs have helped open some eyes to some, like I said, up-and-coming fantasy potential superstars. So we'll see about that, man.
Yeah, this week in fantasy football, the highs and lows, and this was a high week, man. When Bourne won this week, a lot of ass whooping, a lot of luckiness, because, oh, man, it's a beautiful thing when you win a week when you only drop 85 points. It is a beautiful thing. You got a donut from Garrett Wilson, and he still survived a donut.
Negative 0.1, Zoo, actually. He was in the negative.
Yeah, he had a negative.
He did a negative.
On my team, so that dude did absolutely nothing, still getting the W. A.J. Brown had one catch, surviving that, and still getting the W on Monday Night Football. Usually on Monday night, my teams lose. I've had 3 weeks where my team has lost on Monday night, so having a team winning on Monday night, it's a good feeling. Like, I slept real good last night.
There you go, Zoo.
Real good last night. It's been a long time, so got some teams in the playoffs ready, and hoping for a miracle in my home league.
Yeah, that ain't happening. You got 1%, man.
1% chance.
This ain't Derrick Rose. This ain't Derrick Rose.
1% is all I need. 1% is all I need.
You need to win out, and everyone else needs to lose out.
Oh, yeah.
That ain't happening. I'm going to be
anything is possible, as KG said. Anything is possible.
Yeah, he said that after he won it.
He won the championship. He did say it after he won the championship. That is important
Which is
to
funny.
know.
Now that, I don't know, it's kind of a weird side tangent, but isn't that weird that he said that after winning the championship?
Because he didn't know what to say. He was
moment.
caught up in emotion. Wasn't that a 7-game series? I think he was taxed out. Yeah,
was that Zoo?
Lakers?
I think they went 7.
Yeah, Lakers, and I get it. So shout out to KG. Same thing with me in fantasy. It's like I said, the 14-team league. I was talking with the guys before the podcast. It's an absolute crap show. It's just a lot of personalities, a lot of people who have egos, and the one thing I will say about that league is super competitive. So that's part of the reason why I'm in it and I like it. And shout out to Jalen Hurts for getting those 2 touchdowns, because I was up by like 7 points in that league, and those 2 rushing touchdowns helped. Like you said, we were saying earlier with Devontae. So glad he didn't score there, because I knew the tush push was coming.
It's beautiful.
I knew it was coming. Yeah,
and I love the predictability of the Eagles' offense. Like, there's no weird play. It's Jalen Hurts push money every time. Like, it's I love the predictability every single time. It's so effective. I like what other teams do.
Yeah. So quarterback play is definitely a big part of fantasy, and I'm glad I got Jalen Hurts on my team. And transitioning to our first topic, you could say quarterback play for the Broncos and the Vikings have improved. With Russell Wilson and Joshua Dobbs doing their thing, even though in that Sunday night game, the Vikings, I feel like, had control of it, and we were thinking to ourselves, like, here we go again, Josh Dobbs coming to the rescue. But Russell Wilson came up, showed up, made some big plays, and the Broncos fighting back. They're trying to be relevant and make it to the playoffs. So People brought this up in the chat. Who do you have more faith in, the Vikings or the Broncos? And People, I'm going to let you start it off.
Well, I do got to open this up real quick. I was on Twitter yesterday, and I saw this guy share a 13-leg parlay that he placed 40 grand on to win 1.5 million. His last 2 legs, Broncos money line and Eagles plus 10. He actually held and hit it. Unbelievable, but it made me just think kind of about that Broncos game and how crazy that ending was and how he must have been roller coastering those emotions, man. And I'm sure Broncos fans as well as Minnesota fans were in the same boat. And they got a little bit to be excited about. I think both teams are finally, obviously I think the Vikings were clicking. Their entire team wasn't clicking, but we saw their offense actually doing better. And they were, 5-0 without Justin Jefferson? Or 4-0, and then, Kirk gets hurt, so on and so forth. Jordan Addison really steps up. TJ Hawkinson, in my opinion, has actually been the most valuable tight end to have in fantasy football this year. More so than Travis Kelce. Kelce's just, I don't know, he's not getting the big playability zoo that we've seen in years past. He's kind of...
No, he's still getting that touchdown.
Yeah, he's still getting you 13, 14.
Yeah, he's been a good red zone target still.
He's a red zone target. I'm not saying he's bad by all means. I am a shareholder of Travis Kelce. But back to the Vikings, man. Josh Dobbs, he's just finding a way, at least to keep the team relevant against a Broncos defense that's been severely improved since that Dolphins rout of 70 points back early on in the season. Sean Payton has really brought this team together, and now they're sitting at 500 in the NFC West, ahead of the Chargers, ahead of the Raiders. Obviously, Raiders take that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying they'll catch the Chiefs, but they're only 2 games back at the Kansas City Chiefs.
For real.
Wild.
Isn't that wild? They're ahead of the Chargers by a full game. But here's the thing about the Broncos that concerns me a little bit. I was looking at their schedule for the rest of the season. So they play Browns at home. Not an easy game. All right. At Texans, at Chargers, at Lions, home against the Patriots, back at home again against the Chargers, and then at the Raiders. I think they're favored in 2 or 3 of those games. I think they're favored probably in the Chargers home game, if I were to guess. Obviously, the Patriots and the Raiders. I actually don't think they're favored against the Browns this week. We obviously know their quarterback situation, but they manhandled a Steelers team that take into, once again, grain of salt for the Steelers, right? But they stay relevant, and it was a 13-10 grinded out AFC North or NFC North kind of type game where it's just ground and pound, field goal to win 13-10. So I'm looking at the schedule for the Broncos, and it scares me a little bit, man. And then you kind of go back to the Vikings side. The Bears at home, the Raiders, the Joe Burrow-less Bengals, Lions, Packers, Lions again. 2 of those games, both Lions games. If they can split those 2, they're a lock for the playoffs. And even if they lose both those games to the Lions, but they take care of business in the other handful, I think they're making the playoffs. And here's why I'm buying into the Vikings a little bit more. The AFC is too crowded, man. It is absolutely way too crowded. They'd have to beat the Browns and they have to beat the Texans if they want a chance at that last wild card spot, speaking on the Broncos. And I just don't see them winning both of those games. They might split that. They could take one against the Texans, who have been a little inconsistent, even though CJ Stroud has still been playing out of his mind. I just think I believe in the Vikings more. You look at the NFC South, absolutely atrocious. No wild card team coming out of there. Besides the Cowboys and the Eagles, that's 3 with whoever wins the NFC South. Then you look at the NFC North. Obviously, we got the Lions. Packers aren't going to be making any noise. Neither are the Bears, obviously. NFC West, you got the Niners, and you got the potential Seahawks. There you go. It just opens up a slot for me in the wild card to look at this Vikings team. Are they going to make noise in the playoffs? Probably not. But they are getting Justin Jefferson back, man. So that's a big thing for me. So I just believe a little bit more in the Vikings at this point. But I do praise Sean Payton for pulling his team together and showing why he was worth that trade and all that money.
Yeah, I am shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I am shocked about this Denver Broncos team because when you start out 1-5, like the season's pretty much over. Like based on odds, you gotta finish like multiple games above 500 to even have a chance of making the playoffs. But beating the Packers, Chiefs, Bills, and Vikings 4 straight without your leading number 1 receiver, without your quarterback, like this is like you lost your 2 most important positions on offense, I would say, your quarterback and your best receiver.
Yep.
And you just keep winning games with a quarterback you got traded for like a 6th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just like I'm speechless how well they played after giving up 70 points, and now their defense pretty much fill up the script. Because I remember when this year's defense started out, last year's defense was not the problem. They had a good defense last year. It was the offense that had a lot of issues on offense.
Yeah,
Russell
Denver,
Wilson, obviously not playing up to par to his contract. And this year, the defense in the beginning was atrocious.
Horrible.
Like, you forget, remember they gave up 35 points to the Washington Commanders. 35 points. 35 points.
Hey, don't hate on Sam.
They gave up 28 points to the Chicago Bears. Like 28
okay,
points.
all right.
You give up 31 points to the New York Jets.
Okay, that takes the cake.
So we're talking about like this dude and Zach Wilson who got benched with Mr. Boyle.
Tim Boyle,
a guy that had more interceptions in college than touchdowns. I don't know how he's in the NFL, but thank you, Aaron Rodgers, for being a good buddy of his. That you got a nice little deal with the New York Jets. because it looks like all you need to succeed in life is be friends with Aaron Rodgers.
It's the hands you shake, Zoo.
Results don't matter. It's about being friends with Aaron Rodgers. So, like, you got 31 points to Zach Wilson-led team. Like, we're like, okay, this thing got major issues. And the amount of scrutiny that Sean Payton felt and the ability to withstand that and pretty much revamp the defense and Russell Wilson having a bounce-back season. Because this guy's not a turnover machine this year. Like, if you look at, like, his basic numbers, 19 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, over 2,000 passing yards right now. Like the dude's been really, really solid. And if you look at his on-paper stats, he's a top 10 to 15 quarterback this year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy that last year people were making fun of him, like seeing his contract, and this guy was a low-tier quarterback. But Russell Wilson this year had some nice comebacks. Even like in some of those losses that they had in the previous games, or some close losses. I remember when they were playing against the Chiefs, and they were actually the defense. I'm like, okay, this defense showed me a little something against the Kansas City Chiefs, limiting this Chiefs team to 19 points. Like, that showed me something, even though they scored 8 points that game, because that Chiefs defense is ridiculous. Like, that is a legitimate defense in the NFL right now. Like, it is shockingly how good they are. But after that game, I was like, okay, this team just showed me a little something on defense, and obviously winning 4 straight. They're back at it. They're going to have another extremely hard test against the defense in the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
So, man, the Broncos are legit. The Vikings, I still don't know. Man, I still don't know. Like, I'm not going to lie. This Broncos story, they're a Cinderella right now. They're a cute story. Bouncing back from being an abysmal team to be a 500 team, okay, that's a cute story. This Vikings team, I just don't know what to think about them. I just don't know how to think about them, because you beat the Bears. Okay, that's whatever. Like, whatever. You beat the 49ers. I'm like, okay, that's a legitimate win. You beat the Packers and Falcons. I'm like, those teams are awful. I'm sorry. Those teams are awful. So I'm not as impressed with some of the wins that the Vikings have, even though, like, Mr. Josh Dobbs, the astronaut, is like a genius, and this dude picks up plays like no other. So he's extremely likable. He's an extremely likable guy. He has incredible pocket awareness. It's something I see. Like, his ability in the pocket, when guys come in, he avoids tackles with, like, high IQ. Like, sometimes I see Jalen Hurts being doesn't see guys that come up from behind him. He just gets sacked. I see the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Watch them.
Justin Fields.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. So these guys have the ability to move in the pocket, better physical ability. But I feel like his vision is extremely good in the pocket. So his ability to, like, avoid sacks and avoid bad plays and turnovers. I'm extremely impressed with Josh Dobbs. Like, this is a guy that the New York Jets could have acquired. He could have acquired him, obviously make a little playoff push this year, but they passed on the opportunity to get him, and the Vikings were like, we lose our quarterback, get this guy in there. So Vikings, cute story, but the wins that they had over some.
You're buying the Broncos.
Pretty mediocre team. So I would say I'm buying the Broncos over the Vikings. That's not saying much. That's not saying much, because after that start with the Vikings, like, those first 3 games, like, ooh, okay, this a little fool's gold last year with all the close wins. But
do you think that the Broncos actually have a chance at the playoffs?
No.
See, that's my point. I agree. The Broncos have been more impressive, but the Vikings have a better chance to make the playoffs. And that's just the conference differential right there.
Yeah, but the NFC is just, you see the quarterback talent.
NFC playoff.
The AFC quarterback plays is just significantly higher compared to the NFC. So
I'm gonna side here with P. Bush. I like the Vikings, and I'll be honest, when I saw Josh Dobbs going to the Vikings, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, well, this is just maybe a guy they're going to put in there to not tank and make the season worthless. And maybe when Justin Jefferson gets back, just to get reps for him and, to get his stats. But then when he came in, and I think he had that game against Atlanta, and you just saw him freestyling and making plays. And like you said, his pocket awareness is so great. It kind of made me start thinking to myself, like, well, maybe this guy's got a little bit of something. Like, nobody's saying he's a top 10, 15 quarterback, but he's a quarterback that can be steady. So you look at that, and then you juxtapose that to the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, I mean, kudos to him, Sean Payton. Russell had a really tough year last year, and it was deserved, all the criticism and all the, stuff, because usually when you lose, all the stuff that you do off the field, like, comes to light, and all the stuff about him having his own office and all that crap. Like that only comes out because he sucked last year. So like this year he's kind of having a little bit of a redemption story. Like, do I think he's still back to his, Seattle days? I don't. I think he's kind of a step below that, but I think he's still good enough. But the Vikings to me are interesting because whenever Justin Jefferson does come back, not only do you have a guy who I think the other week that he's on the track to being a Hall of Famer, you have Jordan Addison, you have Hawkinson. And I think now, Madison, I'm iffy on, but I think Todd Chandler being back there pushing him, that gives them at least a nice two-headed monster to where their running game will be solid enough to where Dobbs can still operate and they won't have to make him throw it 35 to 40 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I may have to disagree a little bit, people, because I was just looking at, and this is all going to change, but when it comes to the playoffs, if they play Detroit, I think that being in a division game, kind of basically, where it's like you're familiar with them. I'm not saying I would pick Minnesota, but it could be interesting because they know Detroit.
They have to split. If they can split, they can win.
Yeah, and we don't know how the seeding is going to work, but I was just looking. I was like, what is the playoff picture looking like right now? And it's like 7-2 is Detroit, Minnesota. And then it's like, now that next round, it would probably be San Francisco, and I'm definitely not picking them against San Francisco. But, I mean, they could win a playoff game, which I guess will be a win for Minnesota. And then you have an interesting, conversation in the offseason where you got Dobbs and you got Kirk Cousins. So I like Minnesota because just their overall talent, there's no shot at Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, who I think they need to get the ball to more in Denver. And I do think Denver on the defensive side of the ball has dudes on that side. It's just that 70-point explosion kind of just threw everybody off, and they're just like, they suck. But like Patrick Surtain in the playoff matchup against any receiver is probably going to lock somebody down. And they might be able to do some things. So I'm going to go with the Vikings just because Dobbs has surprised me, and with Justin Jefferson coming back, they might be able to catch some rhythm, which I'm not too happy about because as an Addison shareholder, I don't. If I somehow do make it to the playoffs in my league, I don't. He
will
might
take
not be
pressure
averaging.
off of him. That's the only thing. He won't be garnering the number one corner anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, and I do think Dobbs, if you're a Hawkinson shareholder, he does. Dobbs like Hawkinson.
He loves Hawkinson.
Yeah, he has a lot of targets.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That might be a trade. I mean, I don't know. There may be some trade deadlines coming up, but I'm just saying it might be a trade target for some people. But
Daryl Morey moment.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Vikings on that one. So, and shout out to, like I said, Ty Chandler. I like that 1-2 punch. And Madison, I think
he doesn't fumble like Madison does, man.
Yeah, Madison's kind of not, I guess, the strongest in terms of being.
He's getting that Eddie Lacy. He's getting that Eddie Lacy syndrome, man.
Yeah, but going to our next topic with playoff seeding and all that type of stuff. You saw, last night we saw the Chiefs and the Eagles play, and that was a rough one, mainly because of the weather. But it's before the season, it was probably most people's pick to get back to the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl before that was just such a classic game. So a lot of people were assuming those are number 1, number 2 type seeds and things like that. But I kind of thought it was interesting because right now, if you look at it, you got the Ravens who are in the number 1 spot. You got the Eagles who are in the number 1 spot. But, most people are thinking the Ravens and Chiefs are a little bit more on par and things like that. So I asked the question of if you had to pick out of these two teams in the AFC, the Ravens, and in the NFC, the Lions, who do you think could be the number 1 seed? Zoo, I ask you.
Man, you know me, the Ravens is that team that you see it on paper, that talent, that defense. It's that defense. It's a ferocious defense. Every time I'm I feel bad for the offense when they play against this team because Lamar Jackson has a back line that he doesn't even need to score that many points, even though Lamar's been pretty solid this year. That defense points allowed, 177 points allowed right now. 177
across
points.
11 games?
11 games. That is number 1 in the AFC. Number 1 in the AFC. So in the AFC, based on points allowed, based on an easy defensive statistic, they're number 1 in the AFC.
16 a game. Wow.
Dude, that is insane. And if you look at the offense, the only team they're behind in offense in points scored are the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
In the AFC.
And that 70-point game set that up.
Exactly. And you got that skew there. So you go you go from the average to the median a little better. Saying, those Ravens, man. Those Ravens have an elite offense, an elite defense, Even though as a Lamar shareholder, I watch a lot of Ravens games. Sometimes he pisses me off a little. But they affect it. Like, he might not be getting all the touchdowns and the passing touchdowns because they don't really need to, because they got the Gus Bus in the red
Gus
zone.
Bus, man.
So I'm telling
Jamal
you,
Williams.
it is incredible to watch, because when you give him the ball, he just scores.
He's Jalen Hurts.
He just scores. He's like Jamal Williams of last year. Their offensive line does a terrific job blocking, and every time they run that play, it just goes in every time. So they're extremely effective in the red zone. Obviously, I know my love for Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers as a rookie wide receiver. Losing Mark Andrews, though, that's a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Essentially
massive
for the season.
loss. Yeah, he's out for the season. They said the code, maybe like there's an opportunity in the playoff. Maybe sometimes he could come back, but that's be extremely rare situation. But that's what the coach said. So that loss, I'm like, oh, okay. Because when Lamar passes to Mark Andrews, that efficiency is real high. Like, that's his security blanket. That's his favorite target. Even Mark Andrews is a bigger tight end. He's sort of a deep threat too. He got a little yak in him for a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
So losing that security blanket, I'm like, okay. You're going to have to rely on Odell Beckham Jr. a lot more. Zay Flowers, like okay. Now
Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah Likely. Yeah, I don't even want to say that dude's name. I didn't even want to say that dude's name because he's kind of irrelevant. Like, last year, he had some nice, cute little games with Mark Andrews out, but this year he's been pretty ineffective with him out in the games that Mark Andrews has missed. So that offense, that passing attack, a huge blow. So now I'm nervous now. Because to be a significant contender, you need everything to go, and you lose your number one pass catcher. This is his Travis Kelce. This is his guy, his favorite target. His efficiency with passing to him is extremely high relative to his other pass catchers. So he's losing that favorite target. So now I'm very bearish on the Ravens now. This is a huge blow. Yes. Even though I love the defense, I love the offense, but now the offense is going to have to rely on other pass catchers that I like. I loved Odell Beckham when he was a Giant. He's not that guy anymore.
No.
He's not that
he
guy.
Had a nice game last week.
He had 100 yards for the first time, I swear to God, in like 2-3 years. Like, Jesus Christ.
Probably since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like, seriously, like, Odell Beckham really did fall off a cliff. And as Lamar Jackson, like, he's not a traditional, like, thrower of the football. So losing his favorite target, that ain't a good thing. And you need everything to go your way. I'm out on the Ravens now. I'm out on the Ravens with Mark Andrews out. I can't believe I'm saying with Mark Andrews. Oh yeah. I saw a little of everything: defense, the offense, the rushing attack. Hey, I didn't get Keaton Mitchell. He's a pretty interesting guy. Got a little burst in him. Feel like Devon Achane, bootleg Devon Achane. He's a small little back that has a lot of juice in him. So nice little. You got the big rusher. They got the little quick guy. So I like that rushing attack. But losing Mark Andrews, I'm just like, that's gonna be extremely hard to overcome. So I am out on the Ravens now.
Wow. So you're siding the Lions have a better shot than.
Absolutely. Like, the Lions, that's one thing. They're in the NFC, easier division. And even when I see them lose, like, I'm like, okay, that Ravens game was definitely an outlier when they got blown out 38-6.
Yeah, that was a huge.
Like, that was like, okay, you have one. I always give teams like one bad week. Okay, those bad weeks.
They went out partying the night before.
Exactly. They're like, I'm writing off that week. And outside of that, they only lost to the Seahawks. So they only lost to the Seahawks, had that one bad week, and then it's just all W's. All they do is win right now. The defense, Aiden Hutchinson is a beastly defense.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, like, obviously last game against the Bears, he looked god-awful with the 3 interceptions. Well, he's been playing extremely good football because their offensive line just protects him. Like, Jared Goff with a clean pocket is something special. It's something special. When he has time to throw the football, one of my favorite receivers in the league, the Sun God, man, this dude is just incredible at football. Never really drop. I never see that dude drop.
Never
extremely good route runner in the slot. Like, dude's
he's no Mecole Hardman.
Oh my goodness.
Or not Mecole Hardman, sorry. MVS, man.
Oh, MVS. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, and Patrick Mahomes had an Amon-Ra. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Jesus.
This Sun God he is incredible at football.
And Sun God might be a Hall of Famer.
Oh my God.
If he had
dude, not gonna lie. Oh my God. He is having an incredible start of his career. But yeah, shout out David Montgomery, the former Chicago Bear. That dude had a nice juice of a run. Like, David Montgomery still got juice. And Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh, he's taking over. Oh, he's coming on. With the David Montgomery injury, Jahmyr Gibbs got a higher workload, and he's been extremely effective in the red zone. Pass catching ability, that was what he's known for. So they have a legitimate two-headed running back monster in those two guys. And you got an elite number one receiver in Amon-Ra. And this offense has been cooking everyone. They won 80% of their games. Last year, it was definitely not a fluke when they started winning games at the end of the year. I truly believe that last year's momentum could definitely roll into this year's momentum.
For sure.
And right now, I'm looking at this team like, this team, like, I'm not saying elite, but they're a good team. Like, even 8-2, that's an elite record. I can't go elite yet. That point differential, 43, I'm like, that's a solid point differential, but not an elite point differential. So I got them as an extremely good team. So Detroit Lions, man.
You believe in them a little bit more.
Just a little more. I'm just like, the Ravens have these injuries. I'm just like, I swear to God, every single year, the Ravens get the injury bug. And
Dobbins,
this is the first time,
Andrews,
they really lost.
Start looking at the strength and
Dobbins.
conditioning coach, man. Who's the strength and conditioning coach? Might need a pay cut to he got to get out of there. I don't know.
Losing Mark Andrews is such a huge blow. It is such a huge
that was massive.
blow.
Yeah. No, I mean, for your fantasy team too, Zoo. I know.
No, don't remind me. Don't remind me. I'm down to David Njoku, man. I have
to man. with DTR, man. Oh man. Yeah, I'm actually gonna flip on you a little bit, Zoo, and I'll explain to you why. I like the Dolphins, but they didn't impress me this past week, man. Like the Raiders, like. Yeah, they won the game 20-13, but Tua was making some bad throws. Just his decision making can be iffy. Jalen Waddle has not been what people thought he was this year.
Bust fantasy.
I would argue he's
no
been
surprise. No
surprise. He's on that Calvin Ridley. At least Calvin Ridley's had a couple 20-point games. I think
he's had bigger booms.
Only had one, and he did have injuries that he was dealing with. But you're looking at that team, and then you're looking at the Bills, who have not been impressive as of late.
Yeah, fired.
The Bengals are down. They pretty much now you got now here's the thing. They're a half game ahead of the Cleveland Browns in that division. Okay? The Cleveland Browns are 7-3. They're probably going to make the playoffs unless they just completely falter. Obviously, they're coming off, like I mentioned earlier, the Pittsburgh Steelers one. That's fine. But you got to beat the teams in front of you. They still have to play the Bengals a couple more times, right? Without Joe Burrow. I think it locks the Ravens in, even with the Browns being 7-3. I still think it locks the Ravens in to the AFC North. The Texans and Jags, I could go through the playoff picture all again, man. But the only other team that's vying for that number one spot that I think actually will challenge the Ravens is the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's a team that is also coming off a tough loss last night to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure they will bounce back like they always do.
Guaranteed.
But I'm looking at the Lions, man. They ain't catching the Eagles. They just aren't. They aren't. They literally beat a top 3 team in the league last night with their number one, arguably the best wide receiver in the league this year outside of Tyreek Hill, to 1 catch for 8 yards. And they still won that game. Because their defense has more holes than it has in the past, but you cannot run against that team. And that's huge when it comes to bad weather, playoffs, all that fun stuff as it gets colder out, man. So, for me, it's not that the Ravens' injury issues, I do agree, that's very problematic. But to your point, Zoo, they've been winning this many games that easily without relying on Lamar Jackson's passing ability. He's running the ball in for touchdowns. They're giving it to Gus Bus. Keaton Mitchell's broken off a cute couple big plays, man. A lot of people started starting him last week. I thought it was a little too early.
I know someone that started Keaton Mitchell over Raheem Mostert.
Ooh, yes, I do too. He might be your roommate there. But yeah, so I guess I'm just looking at the AFC. We talked about it being more jumbled, but I see that more on getting in at the lower end of the playoffs versus the higher end. I think the higher end teams are locked in. The Bills is kind of the only one that is subject to some volatility. But the Lions, man, I believe in them. I think they're a great team, like you said, Zoo. I would say that they're better than you were giving them credit for because their defense is at such a high level. Goff did have a bad game against a Bears defense that is statistically actually one of the better defenses in the league this year when fully healthy. Broken down statistically, they are. And they took advantage. Goff made some bad throws, a couple errant ones. And he still fought through. So the resiliency of this team and the resiliency of the Ravens is what's impressed me the most. But I got to side with the Ravens, man. I'm just going to go with the more dynamic player, and that is Lamar Jackson, man. So I have a little bit more faith in them at the number one seed, but that's a little bit more leaning towards the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are just that good, and the Niners are still in contention for the number one seed too.
Yeah.
And you got to remember the Eagles and Niners play each other in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
they do.
Let me look this. Yeah, they play in week 13. Next week.
I think the winner of that game,
Mm.
the Lions could benefit from that game,
Yeah.
right? If the Eagles lose, but if the Eagles win that game, they've locked in the number.
Thing is, the Eagles got some tough games coming up. Like I still think as the Bills is a very dangerous team. Even though the record
That's a tough
is not,
of course.
but that's a tough game. The 49ers and the Dallas
Cowboys and
so
Seahawks too.
that 3-game stretch
in Dallas
is extremely tough. Extremely tough. So
I agree. It's just I'm looking at the Lions and they have pretty.
That's what I was about to go to.
Easy
their
matchup,
schedule looks kind of easy.
But they do have to play the Cowboys. They do have to play the Cowboys this year,
and the Vikings.
To your
twice.
point, the Vikings twice, man. If they split those two games, that can make it tough. I think this is a pick 'em, even with the Mark Andrews injury.
It's closer to a pick 'em because the thing is with the Ravens looking at like their schedule, Chargers going to the Chargers. It's just I think the cross country thing might be a thing. Who knows? But Rams, that's probably a dub. But the at Jacksonville and at 49ers, that's going to be a tough back-to-back.
Yeah.
That's a tough back-to-back. And then, you got Dolphins, Steelers, and the Steelers, in terms of when they play the Ravens, it's just a street fight. It's never like that's, even though you might be better than them, they're going to fight you. It's going to be, wrestling through the bar. Like, that's going to be a dog fight, no matter what the record is for the Steelers. So I think the Ravens have a tougher path in terms of, like the end of the season versus the Lions. I do agree that I think the Ravens losing Mark Andrews is a massive deal because you can't let Odell fool you with that 100 yards. Like that was a good,
that was a miracle,
game for him. But until I see, not saying he's got to get 100 yards every game, but until I can see some more 75, 85 yard games back to back, then I would be more confident. Be like, okay, he's got a number one guy because. I mean, Rachaad Bateman caught a touchdown pass, but he's not vertically getting anywhere down the field. Zay Flowers is a nice receiver. I like him a lot. But they're relying on their running game. So, to me, which in the playoffs is
dominates time.
That's going to be very important. And one thing about Lamar, too, like, I always feel like when he's up, like, 10 or 7 points, he kind of does a good job of, like, he'll get the first down, kind of just slide in bounds and do things that are, like, going to keep the clock moving. But I think I'm going to side with the Lions just because of that schedule. Like, I do think with the not back-to-back, but the 2 games at the end, 2 out of 3 games, whatever, against the Vikings, that may be a little difficult because it's just a division game. But, I mean, the Saints, the Bears, like, and I know, like, the Broncos is a thing, but
you better watch out for that Bears game against the Lions again, man, because the Bears are at home. I'm not saying they're going to do it again, Zoo. I'm not saying they're going to do it again. Hey, the Lions.
I was watching that. I was watching that Bears game.
The Bears should have won the game. I will agree with Pete Bush on that. They should have won
that game, Zoo. Their red zone play calling gave them. Cairo Santos had 5 field goals. 5. You don't know how bad play calling that is when they were actually running good routes and stuff.
Bears are allergic to winning games.
I agree, but they're going to play
Detroit Lions
division game.
You know what? I'll toss 10 on that game, Zoo.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now. Let's go.
Right now.
Show back, baby. Show back.
Let's ride, Lions. Jared Goff. Let's go.
It ain't happening,
I'm all about the sun god. I'm all about it,
you know what, Zoo? I hope it snows 12 inches before that game.
Wait, what day is that game on? It is
I think it might be
December 10th.
I'm hyped, baby. I'm rooting for the sun
it's over.
god.
Be a chance.
David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, Aiden Hutchinson. I'm ready, man. Detroit Lions.
No.
Let's put the Raiders.
It's going to be Roschon Johnson's breakout game. You watch.
I hope so. I got him deep on my bench, and that's just because I have to have a running back.
I caught him.
He's going to start getting looks now. Deontay Foreman's out.
Yeah, that's actually.
Was Khalil Herbert back though? I mean,
yeah, but he did not look good. Roschon had good. He averaged 6 yards a carry.
I hope so because
we got a bet too.
Antonio Gibson.
I can't wait for that game.
Betting, man.
There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
There you go.
Like I said, I'll start it off. Who did I have last week? I think it was Arizona and Houston. I watched the second half of that game, and I was like, when Houston was driving, and I think Arizona got jobbed on I think Houston had punted and it hit the actual Houston defender, and they were trying to claim it hit an Arizona defender, and Houston started to get the ball at I think the 22-yard line. And everybody was like, that's what's the point of review if you can't get it right or whatever? Well, then the football guys fixed it. And I think 2 plays later, CJ Stroud threw a pick. It almost was a pick 6, but Arizona just couldn't. After that play, Arizona couldn't cash in. They couldn't get into the red zone. And one thing I probably underestimated is, as much as we talk about Houston and, their offense with CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, and all those other guys, their defense is actually pretty good. They can lock up, they can rush the passer. They got guys on that side of the ball, and it's not surprising because of D'Amico Ryans. It's just when you're looking at the Houston dialogue and everybody talking about him, it hasn't been about the defense. It's been about CJ Stroud. So, I missed on that one, pushing me to 5-3. P. Bush, I know. Who did you have?
Off the L, man. Tyreek Hill scored before his injury, where he went out for a little bit. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Austin Eckler just drops an absolute donut against your Packers.
He didn't look athletic, man. He didn't look athletic. He looks hurt.
Fumble in the red zone.
Just absolutely brutal. I just couldn't believe it. And after that, the game script just didn't go their way, and Herbert was having to throw the ball. I've never seen Herbert more frustrated than in that game.
Yeah, he looked pissed.
Their center wasn't snapping at all. He threw the ball back at the O-line. So, yeah, that was a tough one. Tyreek Hill's always a lock 9 times out of 10, but missed on that one, man. So this week I'm going to go with one of your boys, Zoo. Gus Edwards, man. This week against the Chargers.
Just got to get him in the red zone.
And it's against the Chargers, man, who have just been giving up lights out. Yeah. So he'll probably be around that minus 105 range, probably pushing minus 120, just because he is such a lock in the red zone. And I'm actually looking at Rachaad White versus the Colts, a game I will actually be at in person, so I can watch this live. But I just think his usage has been absolutely ridiculous these past 3 weeks. He's been getting 20-plus touches a game. Baker Mayfield loves to use him out of the backfield. He's also been pretty viable running the ball as a smaller back. So he's been finding the end zone. I think he's a solid value play this week. So Gus Edwards and Rachaad White sticking with the RBs this week, man.
Going with the RBs, man. Last week, I took the Chargers. My own Packers. I was feeling real good until that last drive. Jordan Love actually led them down, throw a dime to Romeo Doubs for a tutty, and that's all she wrote, man. The Chargers, that team that I watch them, they're just allergic, man. They're allergic to winning. Quentin Johnson.
Oh, my.
Justin Herbert throws a dime. That's a touchdown right there. That cannot happen. You see a guy, Mike Williams, get injured. The rookie wide receiver gets an opportunity to establish himself in the NFL, a.k.a. what Jordan Addison had an opportunity. He thrives. Quentin Johnson fails. This dude might be out of the league. Because this dude, he sucks. He just sucks at football.
Yeah, one touchdown all year.
As a wide receiver coming into the league, he was known for drops. And now in the NFL, he hasn't gotten any better. So the dude has made zero improvement. He sucks. So, him dropping the pass, I don't know if you guys watched. Keenan Allen dropped a red zone touchdown.
Yeah.
He might have had a really good game, but Keenan Allen, this guy's one of the best receivers in the league. He dropped the red zone tutty. So, and then obviously I mentioned Austin Eckler in the red zone, had a little fumbling action. So they had just a bunch of unforced mistakes on their side of things. They're clearly the better team than the Packers. I don't even regret the bet because watching the game, the Chargers, they moved down the field pretty easily.
Just turnovers, man.
Just turnovers, and they still had an opportunity to win, but then Jordan Love made one more play to get the W. So, shout out to my Packers.
Might be the guy, Zoo.
Yeah. I can't stop it. He ain't the guy.
Bet on him this week. You should do it.
No. I do not enjoy watching this Packers team play football. Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave.
Hey, Jaden Reed.
Yeah, nice little run. He had a nice little run.
Nice.
He got
might be better than Watson.
Yeah, but I see Jordan Love. I just see mediocrity. Just mediocrity. Matt LaFleur, good luck to you. You only got Aaron Rodgers now. Before me this week, got to bounce back from this L. And I'm going to go with an old reliable. A team that I watch a lot of because I have a lot of fantasy assets on this team. Eagles, baby, 3.5. Eagles 3.5, man. So pretty much when the Eagles win, they win by 4 points at least. They done it against the.
Yeah, it's recency bias.
They beat the Cowboys by 5. They beat the Commanders by 7. So every time they win, they have covered 4 points this year. every time they won.
Last
so I'm
night.
picking them to straight up win. They only had that weird loss against the New York Jets, really weird loss. So that's their only bad. That's their only loss of the year. So I'm picking the Eagles. Obviously, like watching them play, they didn't play that well against the Chiefs.
No, Chiefs dominated that game.
Yeah, Chiefs physicality wise, extremely impressive. Like extremely impressive. I remember one play was 3rd and 1. You expect the Eagles to do the tush push, and they ran some weird play for some reason. So it like got in their head. Like I don't know what they're doing because every time they ran the tush push, it worked. And 3rd and 1, they ran some weird play. It didn't work. So they got in their head on the physicality. I love Hurts, but the turnovers, man. Threw another interception. He almost fumbled it. Good thing he recovered that. Like I swear to God, Jalen Hurts he got a fumbling issue. Like in the pocket awareness, sometimes he just looks a little blind. But you guess the team in the Buffalo Bills who dominated the Jets, so that's a bye week. So they had a nice little bye week last week. So now they feel a little relaxed. The Eagles at home, 9-1. Like this team's been absolutely dominant this year. Super Bowl contenders. Obviously, they're up there Vegas favorites. I know with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm just picking them to win this game. Like I see 4 points. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty much in my mind this is a money line because this team's gonna win and they're gonna win at least by 4. So
at home,
dude, at home. Against this Bills team, then so I'm going with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown for a bounce back game because this dude.
He's gonna have.
He can start bitching, man. He wants those yards, so I can't wait for a huge week for AJ Brown for me, for fantasy wise, personally. So I'm ready for the Eagles to have a nice little shootout against the Buffalo Bills. So I'm extremely excited to watch this game. If I'm going to Eagles again because they just seem to win games even when they don't play well. Because against the Chiefs look like the better team. They look like they look like the better team. They just had some butterfingers on their side of the offensive field because Patrick Mahomes had some absolute dimes in that 4th quarter.
The rain was huge there. Kelsey had that drop.
Oh,
obviously the MVS drop.
And he had the fumble.
And he had the fumble.
That was bad. That was awful.
That's
awful.
Hey, but that's the game, man. You play it outdoors, you're bound to have to deal with inclement weather like that, man. So I agree. I still think the Eagles are a damn good team. They're elite. They are beyond.
They just know how to win.
And this is why I'm picking them over the Lions, man. That's why I'm picking them over the Lions.
And I got to shout out, speaking of the Lions, I'm going to shout out the former Lion, DeAndre Swift. Man, that guy, they got such a steal with them. Trading a late pick for DeAndre Swift. He's added a different dimension to his running attack. He has some
Lions are mad. They got Gibbs.
Yeah, they got Gibbs, but this is a lot cheaper. They're getting similar production, but it's a lot cheaper. Like DeAndre Swift has some nice runs. Like when he does his classic thing, runs up, gets close to a touchdown, but he gets tackled, and you got to give it to my boy Hurts.
Yeah, the Matt Forte.
That's pretty funny, man. It happens every single time. But DeAndre gets it up, man, give the Hurts to smash it in. So it's great to see DeAndre Swift thriving in his role. And no more rushing attacks for Boston Scott Kenneth game, bro. Like that just needs to stop. That needs to stop.
Or the forgotten man. Rachaad Penny, man. Remember when he was supposed to be
Seattle back? Yeah.
Oh wow,
woo. That was long out of the door from week 1.
Yeah. Shout out to Rachaad Penny. He had his years, but it's DeAndre Swift's time. But we were just talking about this maybe a couple seconds ago. The Packers and Chargers. I kind of almost feel like the same thing with the Chiefs and the Eagles. Like, the Chargers are the better team. To me, I think all of us can agree it's a head coaching issue, and I'm pretty sure they're going to figure that out towards the end of the season. If their franchise worth their salt, they're going to try to figure out the Staley situation and get him up out of there because they can't waste Justin Herbert's talent. Yeah. And if you look at that entire roster, they have too much talent to be underachieving like they are. But, by no means do I think Jordan Love is, like, to Zoo's point, like he's even a top 10, top 15 potential type quarterback. I think he's an average guy. But I do think in that game, I did see him throw for over 300 yards and, have 2 touchdowns. And it shows like, okay, there's something in there. It's just, I don't think his ceiling is super high. So, this week, there just wasn't a lot. Like I said, I say this a lot of weeks, but there's just some weeks where it's just like you see a lot of negatives and, you may get like a plus 110, plus 105. Like, I just don't think it's worth it. So I was deciding between 2, and I was thinking about the Dallas and Washington one just because I feel like Dallas, it being a Thanksgiving game, they're like not in it. And I always feel like Dallas on Thanksgiving, maybe they do dominate. I don't know what the numbers are, but I just feel like Sam Howell could just go nuts in this 10.5. But I stayed away from that because I'm like, Sam Howell at Dallas, nah, I'm good. Like, I can't see it at Dallas, him going crazy on Thanksgiving and them getting upset. I just don't see it. They may cover the spread, but like they're not gonna get that upset. So I was like, let me just go Packers Lions. I didn't like what I saw from Goff last week, man. I didn't like it. 3 INTs, like, look, I get it. I know we always like to pick on the Bears and all that type of stuff, but you can't have 3 INTs in one game. Granted, division game, and it's just like, okay, that's out of my system. I'm good. It's just stuff. Yeah, at home, like it's just we're good, And the Packers also playing that division too. And some will say the Packers defense has been all right this year, but I do like their guys on that side of the ball. They got a lot of talent. If Jordan Love can just be average and AJ Dillon can give me something, just something.
I'm sick of watching.
Just need a Gus Edwards type touchdown. If he can just give me 1 or 2 of those, he ain't got to rush for freaking.
Wait, Sean, let me amend my anytime touchdown parlay. I'll throw AJ Dillon in there for you. I'm just
oh man,
I wouldn't
don't do that. Please don't do that. He's and listen. I've had a lot of unpleasant things to say about AJ Dillon because I was a shareholder of him last year as an quote unquote RB2, and that definitely didn't work out. And I couldn't even get him as a flex. Like he was so disappointing. But I did like how Jordan Love looked. It's a division game. Jared Goff coming off 3 INTs. Not saying he's going to throw 3 INTs again, but Packers defense is a little bit more stout, I feel like. And it could, Jaden Reed, man, Christian Watson, that I don't think that boom is coming, but Dobbs, and if we think about it last year, Dobbs, he was I think he was the better receiver. I know Christian Watson had the end of the season run, but I think throughout the season, like Dobbs was the more consistent receiver. Jaden Reed looks good, like I said, and I don't know, maybe the Bears, not Bears, but the Packers get opportunistic, get a couple turnovers, and then it's a close ball game. And like you said, it's right now plus 295 on DraftKings, so I feel like that's really, really good value. It's 7.5, I think, is like a spread you can get on that game. So you got touchdown and some change.
Are you going money line?
I got the money line. I got a money line. I do money line bets. Yeah, I can't do that. I'm not do the coverage, man. Straight money line.
Wow,
give me the Packers, man.
You gotta pray for Romeo Dobbs. Like Romeo Dobbs this year, low key has been a touchdown machine.
Yeah,
he has had 7 touchdowns on only 38 catches.
About a bit of a James Jones, if I might say, Zoo, from back in the day.
Hoodie Jones. I used to love when he used to wear that little hoodie in his jersey. Dobbs is a really good route runner. I think that's why I think Love is kind of keen on him, because if you look at Watson on the opposite that, he's just more of a go route slant. Like he's not a precision route runner. And he's hurt a lot. His
ankles, man.
Hamstring.
Ankles, shoulders, hamstring. It's just
everything.
I've reached on him this year in fantasy, but I don't know.
I like that long shot. shot.
Like the value, like you said, it was either that one or the Cowboys. And part of the reason why I didn't pick the Cowboys, because I feel like I'd just be like hoping because it's Thanksgiving Day, they just do something stupid, and then somehow it's a fourth quarter game. But I don't want to hope on that.
You're just still trying to win that Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott argument while Deshaun's sitting on the bench for the rest of the year.
Deshaun's not coming back. He's doing a lot of clapping now, rooting for DTR.
What kind of clapping are we talking about here? Yeah, exactly.
DT. You know what's going to be hilarious? Looking at the playoff schedule, and I know we got to go, like the Cleveland Browns being in the playoffs, and I think who is their matchup?
It's insane.
Without their 2 best
so their matchup right now would be Miami. They could win that game.
Yeah, they can.
They can beat anybody.
They literally could beat anybody.
You know what they remind me of? I'm not saying they're the same, but they're very much like the 06 Bears a little bit, man. They are in every single game. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to annoy the hell out of you and somehow just win random games. And you're just like, okay, what are you going to do?
Because like if they would have won that game, beat Miami, then they'd play Baltimore. And then it's like
they beat them once before.
I don't know. The Cleveland's not listen.
Did they?
Disclaimer: they are not going to the Super Bowl because the NFL will not allow DTR to be in it. That's just not part of the print. Like they're not doing that. But it's just they're very interesting because that defense is so effing good. So I don't know, man. And I think too. The 2 times I bet on them this year, I won on my money line bet. So it's like they've helped me out. So, but like I say, we are in week 12 and NFL season is rounding out. For all you people who listen to the NBA, topic for that will be coming soon. It's December, basically. And we'll be talking about things that will surprise us and things that we're intrigued about when it comes to the NBA season. But right now, we're still full-fledged NFL mode. So make sure you guys tune into Bullheaded_pod on Instagram, Bullheaded864 on TikTok, Quantron Knows on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, the audio mediums. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.